When I first noticed that mom liked Dion was during the first day of summer 2021 neighborhood's cookout. It was a Saturday evening cookout. My dad was present, along with most neighbors in the subdivision. The cookout was being hosted by my mom. She was one of the three board members of the HOA on our subdivision. So they rotate on hosting various events every 3 months to improve community engagement. We live in a high end subdivision that was about 6 years old at the time. We were one of the first family to move into the neighborhood. I was 17 years old and my mom was 42 years old. My dad was 45 and I have a 14-year-old brother. Dion was 19 years old at the time and his family moved into the neighborhood recently. He is a college student, so he was only home during the holidays. His dad used to be a professional baseball player back in the 80s. Now his dad works as a high school basketball coach in another district. His mom works for the city. He has three older siblings, and they are spread across the country. I remembered when they moved in, I had a feeling that mom didn't like them for some reason. I am not sure if it was prejudice, but I noticed her discomfort when they moved in because she was spying through the window when they are out and about. My mom is an extrovert and enjoys interacting with people. If it had been a white family, she would have came and introduced herself, but she waited to study Dion's family first before she approached them. My mom also had the final say in our household, and my dad allows her to win because he doesn't have the energy to argue with her. She's a good mom to me and my brother, but sucks at being a wife. She's a control freak, an OCD. It's either her way or the highway. Most of the conflict between her and my dad stems from minor issues that has to do with her OCD and her wanting to dominate every decision in the household. We have learned to adjust to her demand so peace could reign in our house. But sometimes we all feel like we are walking on eggshells to make her happy. A couple of months after Dion's family moved in, my mom was still spying on them through the window. Normally, she's the type that would greet the neighbors with pastries and fruits from our garden, but she didn't know what to make of Dion's family. We have never had black neighbors in our subdivision, or do we have any family friends that were colored. It was funny to watch because we would catch her spying on them through the window and she would deny it. We would make fun of her for spying on the neighbors. Back to the cookout. Dion was very social and conversing with everyone. He was friendly and likable, and everyone gravitated towards him. I was a 17-year-old shy kid at the time, standing at the corner with my little brother and dad. I envied how confident Dion was talking to people he never met before, introducing himself. My mom, in particular, took interest in him. She finally saw a way to break the ice with the next door neighbors she had been spying on for a couple of months now. After the cookout, Dion stayed behind to help put the chairs away and clean the place up with my mom and other volunteers. When we arrived home that day, my mom wouldn't stop talking about how respectful he was and how she was impressed and how and what he was studying in college. I guess she was surprised that he was a normal human being. LOL. He was all she spoke about. There were other volunteers helping out with cleaning the place, and there were other kids that went to college, but she singled out Dion. I guess when the prejudice falls apart, you elevate mediocrity to God's status. Dion was back from college for the summer break and would stay through the summer break at his parents' place next door. The following evening, after the cookout, my mom had some leftovers and thought it was a good idea to use that excuse to visit the neighbor because Dion requested some leftover brisket. I thought she was doing so to meet Dion's parents. Otherwise, she would have done it when only Dion was home. It worked once again. She was surprised at how friendly his parents were and was telling us all about it over dinner. Sometime during that week, Dion was shooting hoops on his driveway, and my brother and I joined him. I found out that he was good at playing basketball, something that we had in common. I invited him to the basketball park to play with my friends. We became close and we would play basketball when I came home from summer school. Fast forward a week later, I came back from school, unlocked the house entrance door, and I was surprised to see Dion and my mom in the kitchen, chatting like old friends. She was making dinner while he sat on the kitchen island stool. They were talking like old friends. My brother and I were merely a distraction as they turned around to welcome us back from school momentarily and then got on with their conversation. It was clear to me by how comfortable he was that he has been visiting my house to speak with my mom while we weren't home. Back then, I didn't suspect that anything was going on. They were bantering like old friends, and I was actually glad to see him. My dad comes home around 6 p.m., and Dion would have left before then. My mom is an accountant, and she works remotely, so she stays home most days and only goes to the office twice a week. The next time I saw my mom and Dion alone was the following week, but this time it was at night, around 11 p.m. or so. We had all gone to bed. I woke up thirsty. I went downstairs to get some water. I heard my mom on the front porch laughing with someone, and when I opened the blinds, I saw mom and Dion sitting side by side on our outdoor chair, talking and laughing like old friends. That was kind of weird. It was very late. My dad was upstairs sleeping, and it has been a long time since I've seen her sitting on the front porch with my dad, chatting. When they do, she wouldn't be laughing like that. When I saw both of them on the porch that night, I thought it was kind of unusual, and I suspected there was something going on between them. But I thought since they were open about it, then it must be harmless, and they have nothing to hide. I am in my school basketball team, and we were having a summer tournament. I remember our first game that season, when my family was supposed to be there to cheer me on. Normally, my dad, my mom, and my little brother would show up. I looked at the bleachers, hoping to see my family during halftime. I saw my mom sitting next to Dion and my younger brother. I looked around to see where my dad was, and he wasn't there. After the game, I asked my mom why my dad didn't attend. She said that she told him not to bother because he had work. I thought that was odd because my dad enjoys coming to my basketball games and would take time off work if he has to. Her response sounded very suspicious to me, but I allowed it to slide. We had a few more games that season for him to attend. It became normal to walk in on Dion and my mom alone. I walked in on Dion and my mom in the kitchen 2 more times while she was making dinner and he was sitting on the kitchen island stool. It felt normal the second time. They were like old friends and weren't hiding it from us. I don't think my dad knew though, or what he would have thought about it. The day before Dion went back to college, my mom went out that night saying that she was going to see a friend. I noticed that Dion's car was missing from their driveway. At that point, I was already suspecting that something was going on between them because a 42-year-old woman cannot be that close to a 19-year-old boy. I was awake that night, waiting for her to come home. When I heard her car roll into the driveway, I looked over at Dion's driveway to see if his car was there, but nothing. I ran up the stairs to go to bed. My mom came through the door. Before going to sleep, I looked over and saw Leon's car pulling into his driveway. That was when I knew that she was hanging out with him on his last night before he went back to school. I was 17, and it was clear to me what was going on between them. Dion was my friend, and he is cool and all, but I don't appreciate him trying to destroy my family. I had no proof of the affair, but this isn't rocket science. It was just a feeling that something was going on between them. After Dion went back to college, I noticed that she was clearly not as happy as she used to be, and I thought to myself that she was feeling bad that Dion went back to school. By feeling that way, she was being disrespectful to my dad and us. My dad is a good father and a good husband and doesn't deserve this. I knew it was wrong for a married woman to be affected by another man like that. After Dion left, she would excuse herself to answer her phone, something she would never do before, ever. September rolls in, around my younger brother's birthday. and Dion drove 4 hours to be there. I didn't invite him, and my brother didn't invite him either. It was clear my mom was looking for a reason to see him. My dad was present at my younger brother's birthday party, and all of a sudden, Dion and my mom didn't spend time talking. No best buddy. He actually spent more time talking to me at the birthday party than my mom, and he kept me company. That night after the birthday party, my mom went missing again. And guess what? Dion's car was missing from his driveway as well. I wanted whatever that was going on to end before my dad finds out because I felt like it would destroy my dad because he loves my mom so much. I felt like my mom was out of control. I love my family and I don't want it to break up. I thought about confronting Dion about it, but what if he denies it? That would be embarrassing. What if they weren't having an affair? What if they were really just friends? There was only one way to find out, and that was by checking my mom's text messages. Over the following weeks, I tried to gain access to my mom's phone. My mom uses her phone for work a lot, so she always had it next to her. It was always with her. She had pattern password lock on her phone, but I have seen her doing it several times, so I knew what the pattern was. Sometime in October, my brother and I went to the mall with my mom to buy some items. I was holding on to her item, including her phone. I saw it as my opportunity to disappear to check her phone while she was checking out some clothing items at the store. I told my brother to tell mom that I went to Leeds store to buy a hat. Then I left. When I was off site, I unlocked her phone, and the most recent person she texted was Dion. She even saved his name with a heart emoji. I scrolled through the text messages, and most of their communication was just both of them checking up on each other like boyfriend and girlfriend. And I love yous were sprinkled here and there. Nothing graphic, but it was clear that they were having an affair. I felt disgusted about it and angry at both of them. I made up my mind to go home and tell my dad about it. When I went back to the store, my mom was looking for her phone. I gave it back to her, and she didn't suspect anything. When I went home, I saw an opportunity to tell my dad that my mom was cheating on him with Dion. I got my dad alone in a room and was ready to tell him about it. But then I looked at his face and chickened out. I couldn't muster the courage to form words. I made up an excuse and ran out of the room. I felt guilty about not being able to muster the courage to tell my dad the truth. It was very difficult for me. I felt like I had a lot of weight on my shoulders. I questioned if I was doing the right thing. I was afraid that I would be responsible for breaking up my family. Over the next week, I suffered with guilt so much that I went on Reddit to search for advice and see if someone had caught their mom cheating. I was a frequent Redditor, and it had been a good resource in the past. I read a lot of stories similar to mine, and the general consensus is that I should tell my dad unless I will feel guilty for the rest of my life. I kept telling myself that I would tell my dad the next day, and then the next day after, and then the next week after, till I decided that maybe if I forgot about it, somehow the affair would stop, which was what I did. Thanksgiving came around, and Dion came home to celebrate with his family. The day before Thanksgiving, my younger brother was at my grandparents' house. My dad was supposed to drive me to get my driver's license because my parents had been planning to purchase a car for me. When I went to the DMV, I realized that I forgot my social security card. So my dad drove me back to the house to get it. When I arrived at the house, I rushed in and opened the door. As soon as I did that, I heard the backyard door shut immediately. I had a feeling that someone was trying to run away. My suspicion was that it was Dion. I didn't want to run after him because he might be gone before I get to the backyard. So I ran upstairs to look through the window that overlooks my backyard and theirs. I looked through the window, and there he was. I saw him, Dion shirtless, holding his shirt on his hands and jumping over the fence from our backyard to theirs. It was clear that I just caught them off guard. He must have panicked when they heard the car or when I was opening the front door. My mom wasn't expecting us to come home that early. They were sneaking around like children, and my mom was cheating on my dad. That angered me immensely. My dad was waiting in the car. So I went ahead and looked for my social security card. When I found my social security card, I went back to the car. This time I was determined to tell my dad what happened. But first, I had to pass the driving test to get that out of the way. After I was done with the driving test, I told my dad that we should get something to eat. Then we went to a restaurant. While we were eating, I told him that my mom is having an affair with Dion. He was shocked and tried to play it off. He asked me how I knew, and I started from when I suspected in the summer, the text messages, and how I just caught Dion sneaking out our backyard. He looked devastated. He completely lost his appetite. My dad had no clue that my mom was cheating on him. He could never have imagined it. Although he tried hard to hide his emotion, he later broke down, and I saw his grief firsthand. Very hard to forget. I felt guilty for telling him because it broke my heart to see a man that I look up to. When we went home, my younger brother and my mom were home, and I took my younger brother out to play video game at David Buster, and I don't want neither him nor me to witness what was about to unfold. When I came home that evening, the dust had already settled. I don't know how the confrontation happened because I wasn't there, but my dad was packing his things, and my mom was sitting in the living room with tears in her eyes, crying. My younger brother went to her to ask her what was going on. I already knew, so I went to my parents' room to see how my dad was doing. When I came into the room, my dad placed his hands around my shoulders and told me that he's moving out of the house for a while to think things through. He thanked me for telling him about my mom's affair, and he told me that my mom wasn't aware that I told him, and he would like to keep it that way. He told me to reach out to him on the phone anytime. After his little speech, he left the house with some of his belongings. I wasn't sure if the affair ended between Dion and my mom, but my mom must have told Dion because he started avoiding me. My mom was begging my dad not to go through with the divorce. At first, she refused to leave the home till my dad threatened to tell Dion's parents about her and their son, which terrified her. I know my dad has retained a lawyer and they are working on separation agreement. Although I believed I did the right thing, I still can't stop feeling guilty that I have broken up my family. Now tell me, should I have handled it differently? Thank you for watching to the end of the video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Please hit the thumbs up so the algorithm will recognize my video and promote my video. Thank you very much and have a wonderful